My very first book was based on the fact that I had 5 kids, and when they were growing up, we always had laundry baskets full of mismatched socks. I mean, literally laundry baskets full. And so the very first book I wrote, they always tell you, write what you know, right? So what I knew was socks go missing all the time. What happens to them? So I wrote Annie Argyle's Amazing Adventure about a sock who deliberately goes missing from the dryer because she's tired of being in dark, stinky places.
Welcome to Write About Everything. I'm author Karolyn Kearney, and I write stories for early readers through adults. I started this podcast because I really love the conversations that take place before and after the final draft. This is where we explore the courage to begin, the creativity to continue, and the reinvention that often surprises us along the way. Hi, I'm author Karolyn Kearney, and today I have with me fellow writer Caren Cantrell. She is an award-winning author of books for children. She has published 10 picture books, a chapter book mystery series, and a middle grade science fantasy novel. She also owns a publishing services company that helps other authors bring their books to print. While writing for children is awesome, Caren also enjoys reading to them, and her 3 favorite words are read it again. Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful. Hey, thanks so much for being here today, Caren. I think we're going to have some fun just having a little conversation between writers.
I'm excited. Let's go.
Okay. I think it'd be fun to let's just dive into a question. So I understand you write for children.
hmm
Um Books for ages 3 to 12 years old.
Right.
So, um, why did you decide on that age range?
Mainly because I started out writing picture books, and I wrote 10 of those, mainly because I have 10 grandchildren, and the main character in each one of my books is one of the names of my grandchildren. So I was leaving them a little bit of a legacy. And I found that kids really enjoyed the books, but then they aged out of the picture books. And I didn't want to lose those readers. So I decided, okay, I'm going to write for those gaps. So I actually wrote the middle grade novel first for the 9 to 12-year-olds. And then that one took me 6 years. So I started that a long time ago. And then I decided, okay, I still have a gap there. So I needed to write a chapter book. So I started the Secret Seekers mystery series.
So, I think that's an incredible idea, and you've given me that idea to perhaps use down the road. I don't have grandkids yet, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I love that concept. And so that makes me wonder, how involved were the older grandkids in maybe the plot or the setting or were they part, did they contribute like toward any of the book, the older
The
kids?
books. So I have a 10-year-old granddaughter. Her name is Ren. And when I was writing the Hidden Room, the first of the Secret Seekers mystery series, I sent it to her first and I asked her to read it and tell me whether or not, was it age appropriate? Was the dialogue something that they would say? And she was really good about it. She came back to me with, well, through her mother, came back to me with highlighted words about, we wouldn't use this word. It's too old for us. We don't know this word in 4th grade. And she made some suggestions for changing some of the situations. And it was like, yeah, she was really helpful. So I gave her a dedication in the back of the book saying, she'd make a great editor someday.
Wow. I love how she was involved.
hmm Yeah,
That was
it
the
was
same
really
with me.
special.
Oh, that
Yeah.
makes it really special.
Yeah.
When I did my first book, Madison is possibly, probably, positively guilty, which is a middle grade. I did
Uh-huh.
the same thing. I didn't use my daughter's names in the book, which I like that idea. Instead, I gave them each the finished manuscript, and I asked each of them to read it and to tell me
Uh-huh.
again, like Ren, are these appropriate words? Are these
Right.
sayings that kids your age would use? So one daughter is like, I don't want to read this. But the other daughter, which happened to be, I believe, Claire, my daughter Claire,
Uh-huh.
we did read the book and she spent quite a bit of time going through it and highlighting words and giving me little rewrites on what made better sense. And I mean, what a great thing that is to have somebody in your corner like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to have a critique group, and they're very worthwhile and necessary. But to have a child actually read your book and give you feedback is like, okay, now you know you're on the right track. I mean, some of the words that she highlighted, I have a book that lists words by grade level. And so I went in there, and sure enough, she was right. Some of the words were sixth grade level words. And it's like, I never would have thought to even check them because it's just, as an adult, you just kind of use words, right? That you think everybody's going to understand.
Right. And we're adults, so I think our mindset is to speak or give dialogue like an adult would. And I
Yes.
learned with my first middle grade that I really too much of the dialogue from the characters
Hmm.
who were 12, they all sounded like mini adults.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
who would have thought? I mean, that's just really cool to
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah. So I sent her the manuscript for my second book, which I hope to have out in October. And she's still reading it. So I haven't gotten her feedback on that one yet, but
And
I'm hopeful.
this is part of the I'm losing my voice. This is part of the mystery series that you are
Yes.
creating.
Yes.
So this is
Hmm.
number 2. The first one was The Hidden Room,
The Hidden Room. And the second
right?
one is called The Clue in the Library.
Oh, I love that. How hard is it for you to come up with your book titles?
My book titles? Oh, okay. So that particular book title went through about 6 different iterations. So usually what I do is I send out to my critique group like a list of here are 5 potential titles. What do you think? And then they come back with their suggestions. And so I revise based on that. And then when they get to the point where they're actually reading the book, they noticed some things in the book that didn't match the title. So that gave me some suggestions on how to change it so that it actually more matched what was written in the book. Um,
Okay.
so yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
how that's how I do it.
Yeah,
And then of
that's
course I check Amazon too to
oh,
see how many other books have the same title.
no,
And
that's a
yeah,
good idea as well. I didn't think to do that.
yeah, because if there are too many of them, and then you start. So I was doing this yesterday because I was already thinking ahead to what maybe my third book would be. And so I was searching on Amazon, putting in the titles, and like 5 or 6 different books popped up with the same title. So, I read the description and it was like, oh my gosh, one of these books sounds exactly like the idea I had. So let's scrap that and, find something else to write.
No, that's a good thing to do. I'll have to think about that. I've got a couple new ones in the works and I'm struggling with titles.
Uh huh.
But speaking of titles, I have a funny story. My first middle grade book, Madison is possibly, probably, positively guilty, which is a mystery about missing meatballs. But I started that when my younger daughter was 1 year old. So my
Mm-hmm.
younger daughter's 23. So when she was a year old, 22 years ago, I started writing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, the book was called Carmela Takes the Cake.
Okay.
Carmel is a
Doesn't it?
very dated name.
Uh-huh.
So fast forward, 20 years later when I started submitting it,
Mm-hmm.
I had to realize that the names, not only the main character named Carmela, but the other names were really outdated.
Uh-huh.
I had to go through and change all the names. And once I did that, I got some attention from publishers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Oh
funny.
yeah.
It's funny with names of, so with your 10 books that you have the main character, I'm guessing it's the main character named after each grandchild.
Yep.
You already had those names. But your other, you're working on that, like the book you have published, The Hidden Room.
The hidden
Is that,
room. Mhm.
is that main character based on a grandchild's name as well or not?
No, no, it isn't. So I did research on, um, so there are 10. So I went back to 2015 and searched for what were the most popular girls' names, what were the most popular boys' names, and then selected from that list.
Oh, yeah, I do that
Yeah,
too. I like
yeah.
that. It's so fun to do that.
It is, and it's interesting because some of the same names keep coming up year after year after year. And then, I mean, you said some of the names were old in your first book, but what I've found is like, so my mother's name is Audrey, right? She's 92. And Audrey is popping up now in books again. So some of the old names are coming back. I had another one um, when I was doing a school visit, and the child's name was Genevieve. Well, my grandmother's name was Genevieve. And so they all come around eventually.
No, no, for sure. Yeah, I know with some of my cousins' children who are having kids, they're naming their kids these older names like Hazel and Helen.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I love that. And Ava. I love seeing those names come back because they're just
Hmm.
so beautiful and timeless. And
Yes.
they're great names to use for characters now versus all the, the ones we hear all the time.
Hmm. Hmm. And the spellings too. I see that a lot, especially when I'm doing book signings. Like Jackson, it's no longer Jackson, it's Jaxon, or,
Yes.
you always have to ask these days. And I
Exactly.
get to do that too. Of course, Karen with a C, everybody spelled it wrong.
Oh, yours is Caren.
Yep.
I have a friend whose name is Karen, and she spells it Caryn.
Uh-huh.
So
Yep.
there's these different deviations, and yeah, I think that's cool. It makes it unique.
Hmm.
So tell me, just give me one day. Explain to me one day that you will spend the entire day doing writing related activities. What would that be? The life of a writer for one day. Just
The
pick a
life
day.
of a writer. Well, I can pick yesterday because typically, like you said, you go to a coffee shop and you spend Saturday mornings writing and drinking coffee. Well, I do the same thing, but I do it with a friend. So we have kind of an accountability um, writing hour. We do it at least once or twice a week. We meet at a Starbucks, we have coffee, and we write for 2 hours. And then when I get home, I'll usually do something around the marketing aspect of it. So I'm trying to learn about using Pinterest now as a marketing tool and having the ability to um, claim your Instagram posts and have them automatically go to Pinterest, which would save a ton of time. And because Claire does such a wonderful job with my Instagram, I can't wait to get those over, but I'm still learning how to do that. But I'll also do things like yesterday, I went back through my Fastest Dinosaur book and my Leo Learns to Swim book, and I updated the categories that I had them in, and I updated the keywords because what I keep learning is that I used to, when I started, those books came out in like 2017. And when you were doing it then, it was like you just used one word for a keyword, right? That's how they taught us to do it. Well, now, if you want to get noticed, it's keyword phrases. So you have to use multiple words like, a phrase that somebody would actually type into the Amazon search bar.
Oh.
No longer type in just, turtles. No, they type in something like children's books about turtles. So I've been going back slowly. I've got the first two done. Obviously, I have to go through another 8 picture books and to update the categories and the keywords. So and then I have to, and I've been trying to learn about this too. I need to update my formats of my picture books on Kindle because, again, they were
Um,
produced a long time ago. They don't have the ability to enlarge them, if somebody needs to read bigger. Um, so I need to go back and reformat all of those using the now, I guess, Kindle Create program to do that. So when I'm not writing, that's what I'm doing is working on marketing stuff and updating past projects, which in a way is kind of like, really? I thought I had that done. And I guess it's never really done.
I don't think people realize how much administrative work
Hmm.
there is in being an author.
Yeah.
Once you've got the book written and you decide I'm going to either self-publish it, or I'm going to try to find somebody to publish it.
Uh-huh.
Boy, that's when the work really begins
It does.
with the
And getting
marketing.
reviews. I don't know
Oh,
what you do. Do you have some secret for getting reviews? Because I have a devil of a time trying to get people to review my books.
I have given away, I don't even know how many books for reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, I haven't had much luck with the reviews. So yeah, I'm hopefully, I'll figure that out eventually.
Yeah. How about book contests? Do you do a lot with book contests?
I, you mean giving books out to people who win?
No, I mean actually applying,
Just,
like
oh
for
yeah.
the Moonbeam Awards or Phoenix Rising Book Awards. Reader's Favorite Book Award
Not really.
contest.
I've
No.
done a lot of contests where I've submitted short stories or
Mm-hmm.
novels for contest. Um, and there's been a few over the years that I've placed, and that's always fun. Now it's really expensive, as you probably know.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
very expensive. For a couple years, I submitted a lot of things for a short story contest because I do a lot of short stories,
Uh-huh.
and I probably spent several $100s over the course of 2 years just because the reading fees are 20, 25, $30 each story,
Right.
and
Right.
it really added up fast. And what really kind of disappointed me was not that I didn't win. That's fine. It's just fun submitting. What
Mm-hmm.
disappointed me was I never did find out anything about, like, the winning
Oh.
story or who
Uh-huh.
won or nothing. I never found out. And I thought, well,
Yeah.
that's really disappointing because I would have liked to have read your winning
Sure.
story, but
Mm-hmm.
I have no clue who won it. So the lack of communication for the $25-$30 fee was disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually started out writing for local newspapers. So I did that for several years until I actually got into taking fiction writing seriously.
Uh-huh.
Um, but in any case, the evolution from writing nonfiction to fiction was interesting. And then going back, I would go back and forth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
After I started writing fiction for a while, I went back to writing for small businesses and doing articles for business newspapers. And I
Uh-huh.
remember several times the editor would call me and say, "What is this? You wrote a story about somebody who just started their business and, the struggles and the challenges, but it reads like a story, like a fictional character. And you're using all this descriptive terms and stuff to describe the shop and the
Mm-hmm.
chandelier how it glistened in the sunlight." He said, "You don't do that for this kind of work. What are you doing?" I thought that was really funny. So I guess that leads me to ask you, have you ever written the nonfiction side?
Yes. As a matter of fact, part of my publishing services company, I do ghostwriting. And so, coming from the banking industry, which I was in for like 30 years, a couple of the books that I ghost wrote, well, all of the books that I ghost wrote were nonfiction business books. And so, one was on uh, mortgage brokers and how to keep their business going even through times when the housing market wasn't booming. And another one was on a guy who has vacation properties. He's a vacation property manager, and he wanted some books about what to expect when you're going and looking for. Well, I had owned a property out here for a long time and had been living in Ohio, so I knew all of that stuff. So it was pretty easy to write. But when I do that, I always record the person that I'm interviewing for their book so that I make sure that I am writing in their voice and not writing in my voice.
Oh.
So, but yeah, I don't really feel like I have too much trouble going back and forth between the nonfiction and the fiction if it's business related. Now, I took a course from the Institute for Children's Literature called Writing for Children and Teens. And a lot of what we did in there was write magazine articles for children's magazines. So that's not quite the same. Even though it's a nonfiction article, it still has to be a story because it has to entertain the child who's reading it. Right? So that was a bit of a challenge, but it was a really great course. I'm glad I took it.
No, I find so many courses to be just so helpful. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
always taking classes, workshops. I just got back recently from Omaha, Nebraska, where
Yes.
yeah, I flew out to Omaha and I went to the Nebraska Writers Guild annual
Hmm.
conference. And I have to say, I thought it was phenomenal. I really truly enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get there next year. But I really do like to travel for conferences if I'm able to.
Uh-huh.
But, there was I wish I could remember her name, I'm gonna kick myself later, but there was a presenter who talked about romance, and it wasn't writing romance, it was just going over how so many of our stories, even the ones that are not romance,
Hmm.
have to do a little bit with romance. Romance seems to work its way into a lot of fiction. And she kind of brought that to mind because I realized even though I do not write romance, I love to read
Hmm.
it. Love reading romance, but I can't write romance. I realize all my stories will have a little element of that in it. And I thought that was fascinating. But tell me about writers conferences. You do attend those I'm guessing occasionally, correct?
I do. Most recently, I've been to the SCBWI conferences, especially when they were in person, not so much when they've been virtual through COVID, but they're having another in person one this November
Hmm.
here in Phoenix. So that's
Oh.
good. But I've also gone to the Las Vegas Writers Conference. Um, and then I've taken a bunch of things online, like the class that I just told you about, which was I think I put in my when I wrote to you that it was a year, but it was actually you had 2 years to complete the course. So it was a lot, but it was good in the way that it gave me a lot of discipline. But yeah, I think conferences are great, even if you just watch webinars online. And a lot of professionals these days are giving you like snippets of webinars that are just like an hour maybe, and not even an hour if you don't listen to all the Q&A from people. And even though they might be trying to sell you a product at the end, like some piece of software, or they're going to consult with you or whatever it happens to be, they always provide some snippet of information that I didn't know before or
Yeah.
that I had forgotten and needed a reminder about. So I'll listen to a lot of those, even though I know at the end there's going to be some kind of sales pitch, especially when it comes to the marketing aspect. So I don't know if you know, there's a guy named Brian Cohen, and he is like a pro at Amazon ads, and he does free webinars all the time.
Huh, I'll have to look into him.
Yeah, he's really good. In fact, Amazon um, had him come and speak at their most recent conference. He's that good about knowing how to work with Amazon ads. Um, Even though I've taken his class multiple times, I have not yet been successful with my Amazon ads, but I'll keep trying.
I just think that there's so many options to market
Mhm.
ourselves as writers. Just so many opportunities. It's overwhelming, and I try to just keep trying different things to see what
Mhm.
I like and whether I have some results. Like I'll go to Barnes and Noble whenever I travel. I
Uh-huh.
will try to get into a Barnes and Noble and, there's been some I've gone to where I've sold a lot of books, and then other ones I've sat there for several hours and nobody will even look at me. They, like,
Mhm.
run past my table and they're like, "No,
Right.
don't talk to me," but, I just think that you have to be open to trying different things, absolutely, to see what you like doing.
Yeah. The most successful I've been in selling face to face has been at farmers markets, arts and crafts fairs, Christmas bazaars. Um, I usually sell more books there than I ever do at a book festival, which is probably not the best thing for me to say since I run a book festival, but it's the truth. And mainly because not a lot of authors think about those places to go and sell books. They think about the Barnes and Nobles and the Poison Pens and the other little bookstores that are around, but they're not taking advantage of the markets that are they go on year round. Um, it puts you in front of audiences that you wouldn't normally see. Um, I go to a lot of markets that are in senior living communities, which for me is perfect because grandparents are my main target audience. They're the ones who buy the books. Occasionally parents do, but it's mainly grandparents that buy for their grandkids. So those have been really successful for me.
Huh, I've never thought of that, but that's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I used to, well, I was a substitute teacher for about 3 years for Gilbert Public Schools
Mhm.
here in Arizona. And probably sent out 65, 70 emails to every teacher, librarian, school administrator for
Mhm.
public, what's the other, charter. And I was
Right.
thinking, oh, I'll hear back from a few to see if I could come out and do a visit, do a
Uh-huh.
talk, give out some books. I had zero response. So I don't know what the market is here for something like school visits because I have not been able to get into any school at all, which I'm kind of surprised about. I would think teachers would like a break for like an hour. Turn the kids over to a
Yeah.
guest, let them, go over how to be an author, how to write books.
Mhm.
But how are you doing with school visits? Because I know you do
Um,
just
I do some school visits. I don't actively try to promote myself with school visits, but um, again, like when I'm at the farmers markets or even at book festivals, teachers are there. And so they'll come up, they'll look at the books, they'll tell me, oh, I teach second grade. And then they'll ask, do you do school visits? And I say yes. And I hand them my card. Um, and so I get contacts that way. I had a school call me a couple months ago out of the blue. I don't even know how they got my name or anything else, but apparently they were on my website. Um, and I got a school visit that way. But I'm torn between when I do school visits, I know a lot of authors charge for their visits. And I'm torn about doing that because I feel like I'm giving back. It's a volunteer activity. I want to get kids engaged in reading and keep them engaged in reading as opposed to just being on their screens all the time. Because if they learn to read well, I just feel like they'll make better decisions as adults if they're good readers. Um, so most of the time I don't charge, but I do ask them to give out my sales page to see if anybody wants to buy some
yeah.
books. Um, but most of my friends who are authors who do school visits are charging $200 or more. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very valuable, I think, to go to schools for the kids,
mhm.
just to meet an author and to find out a little bit about that type of career. So, uh, one of my collection of short stories is based on the years that I was a real estate agent. The main character throughout every story is his name is Ralph. He's the real estate guy. So,
Mhm.
during the 10 years or so I was in real estate, I kept little stories about everything that was going on and the funny people I would meet. And then quite a few years later, I compiled them all into short stories. So have you found, have you written any stories based on a previous career?
No, I can't say that I have. On a previous career, um, no. Previous experiences being a mother, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a
Previous
lot of
careers,
material there.
yeah, there is. There is. In fact, my very first book was based on the fact that I had 5 kids, and when they were growing up, we always had laundry baskets full of mismatched socks. I mean, literally laundry baskets full. And so the very first book I wrote, they always tell you, write what you know, right? So what I knew was socks go missing all the time. What happens to them? So I wrote Annie Argyle's Amazing Adventure about a sock who deliberately goes missing from the dryer because she's tired of being in dark, stinky places.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it.
So let's see. Did I ever? Well, you know what? I guess when I first started my business, and I wasn't really looking to help authors who were writing fiction. I was looking to help business owners who needed to use their book as a lead generation tool.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did put out a couple of little mini books. They're like, I don't know, 3x4 size, a couple of different ones on how to network using a mini book as your business card, and some others on how to actually write a book to use as a lead generation tool and what you need to include and blah, all of that kind of stuff. So I guess, yeah, from that perspective, I did based on my business experience and the
Oh,
amount of time I hated networking.
it's a necessary evil, I think, isn't
It
it?
is. It
Mm,
is.
yeah. So why did you get started with the company that you have right now?
So when I moved out to Arizona, I left the banking industry. I was in Ohio. I moved to Arizona, and I was at what you would call a super community bank, and I ran the operations division for them. And so when I moved to Arizona, there were two kinds of banks. One was a super bank like a Wells Fargo, Bank of America, US Bank, and the others were little tiny banks. There wasn't a bank that was kind of like in my niche. Um,
Okay.
and it was 2008, and the mortgage debacle was happening, and I was disillusioned by how many banks were treating their customers who couldn't afford to pay their existing mortgage rate, but could have afforded to refinance, but weren't allowed to. Anyway,
Oh,
um, so I quit the banking industry. And then I started looking around for, okay, now what do I do? Well, I tried some multi-level marketing companies and decided that was not for me. And then I took a course in marketing, like online marketing, social media marketing. And again, decided after I finished the course that it wasn't really for me. But while I was taking that course, there was a segment of it that was about writing for businesses to create their books for lead generation tools. And it was like, aha, this I can do. I know I can do it. I'm a good communicator. I know a lot about business because I was an executive vice president. So this is the niche I'm going to do. And so that's how I started my business,
oh,
was ghostwriting and helping business owners put together books as their lead generation tool. But then, like about 3 years in, I started having grandkids. And I'd always wanted to write for kids, like ever since I was a little kid. Um, I thought, all right, here's the time. Now I know how to publish books because I've been doing it for these business clients. So now I'm going to start writing for kids like I always wanted to and publish my own books, which I did.
wow. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
fantastic.
And if you are interested, the reason I decided to go the self publishing route instead of trying traditional publishing with the picture books is because when I looked at the timeline for
Yeah.
traditional publishing, where it could be, the amount of time it takes to find an agent, and then for the agent to find a publisher, and then the publisher being 2 years out, and whatever, it was like by the time that book gets on the shelf, that grandkid is going to be 6 or 7 and isn't going to want to read it anyway.
No, that is exactly right. My first 2 books were to traditionally I can't speak,
Hmm.
traditionally published, and you're right, it took a couple years. And then after that, the rest of mine are self-published because,
Hmm.
I can get them out so much faster,
Right.
and I wanna get them out there.
Uh-huh.
Once they're born and they're ready to go and they wanna get out in the world, they wanna get
Yep.
out. They don't
Yep.
wanna be stuck with an editor for 6 months and then going through all these different, processes to get, actually published. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
I totally get that.
yeah. And I agree about that. Once you have them born, you want to get them out because the second book is totally written. It's been totally edited. It's ready to go, except for the illustrations. And I won't have the illustrations until like maybe September. And it's like, oh, I just want to get this book out, but
I know.
it's sitting there waiting on somebody else.
No, I know, that's always hard. I'm working on finishing up. I have 2 young adult books. I finished one about a year ago.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what to do with it. I'm gonna probably self-publish it, and then I just finished a second one recently, and so this leads me to ask you about whether you are a planner or a
Mm,
pantser, because with me, I am not a planner. I Planning things makes me nervous, and I think it's because my entire life I've always
mhm,
been on a strict schedule. I had to do things a certain way, very rigorous, things like that. So in
uh-huh.
writing, I like to just let things take its course. But
Yeah.
when I get to the last, probably third of the story, that's when I try to plan the ending.
Mm,
So I know kind of where it's going. But I tell you, Karen, most of the time, even though I'll plan the ending, guess what? It
it's
doesn't
different.
go that way. It doesn't.
Mhm.
It goes off kilter and it ends a different way. So, do
Yeah.
you find that you're a planner or a pantser?
So it depends on when I do the picture books, I'm not a planner. I just sit down and I write them because, they're short. And so they're easy to revise and think about new things and go back and correct them and whatever. When I'm writing the chapter books or when I wrote the middle grade novel, I did put together an outline, but just, like a loose outline, not like everything that was going to happen in the chapter, but the basic idea of what needed to happen in the chapter. And then from that point on, it was pantser time. Look at what I thought was going to be in the chapter, see if it still fit, change stuff around, move the chapters from one place to the other. But I do find that when I'm writing longer books, it does help me to have a little bit of an outline to go by. So I'm a combination.
I think that's probably the best one to be is a combination of both of them. So, yeah.
Yeah. But like
But
you,
let
I mean, you never know where it's going to go. Like The Sun Thief, the middle grade novel, I first started writing that based on two different points of view, one from the human side and one from an alien's side, girl and boy. And there were a lot of flashbacks. So it was kind of, I don't know, Gone Girl sort of thing, I guess. And when I finally, and it took me like, I was working full time then. And so I was writing whenever I could. And it took me like 3 years to just get through that point. And then I started sending it out and getting feedback that said a couple of things. First of all, I had too much data dump in it. And then secondly, it was too confusing going back and forth with these flashbacks. So I needed to
Oh,
not write it in first person with two different points of view and rewrite the whole thing in third person in chronological order. so, so my outline didn't do me a whole lot of good that time, but
you tried.
I tried. It took another 3 years to get that finished and revised and edited and everything, but it was worth it. I think it is a better book now than it would have been. Yeah.
Well, I tell you,
So,
we're gonna finish up. I'm gonna ask
okay.
you a question, and then you
Okay.
can ask me a question, and we'll just probably wrap it up at that point. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
So, here's a question. If you could write a story of any genre in any genre that you currently do not write in, which one would it be?
Um, I would write, I think, young adult on the higher end of young adult. Um, but I've had this idea in my head for a long time. Um, that would be a addiction kind of story, addiction and redemption, where actually the father is addicted to begin with, but then his daughter follows in his footsteps. And so I've had this idea for a long time. And I think if I really sat down and did the work, I could probably, I had a nephew who died from an overdose. So ever
Mm.
since that happened, it's always been like, I kind of want to write a book about that. Um, but so my question to you is, because this is where I kind of get scared, right? So when I'm writing middle grade, I know I have like 30 to 35,000 words. And even though the middle graders are starting to have emotional connections and think more deeply about their world, it's not the same as writing for an almost adult or adult world where you have to
Mhm.
be 80,000 words and um, digging deep into a person and their character and their development has to be so much greater. And so, how did you make that transition?
From middle grade to young adult,
Yeah.
purely on emotional depth and the problems of my characters. Like my new young adult one, I'm just finishing up. One of the main characters suffers from severe depression. He's 15 years old. He's been suicidal. So it has to like I wouldn't do that for a middle grade.
Hmm.
Kids are being bullied. Kids are trying to forge friendships. There's that they're
Right.
trying to belong. They're trying to figure out what group they belong in. I wouldn't throw depression or suicide into a middle grade. But this is young adult. So I actually had an agent reach out to me not too long ago because I had submitted a portion of this to him, and he
Uh-huh.
said the same thing. Because initially, I had told him this is middle grade, and he came back. He says, "No, it's not. You have a character who has suppression and is trying to deal with it in his friend group.
Hmm.
Because of that emotional issue, it is not middle grade; it's young adult." So it has to do with mental illness and the scope of the story, and how it's approached and how it's handled. So, as far as that transition, I feel like there's just a lot of things that young adults, ages 13 plus, that they go through today,
Hmm.
more so than ever. There's anxiety issues, there's depression, there's addiction. There's just a lot more adult type themes that younger people are having to face. And I feel like I really want my characters, the ones who have these issues, I want them to be able to come out. And in this
Hmm.
one story, my young adult, my character, I didn't plan to write him with having
Uh-huh.
all these problems, but he told me he wanted to be upfront and he wanted to share that, his struggle with depression. So that character wrote himself, and you know what a joy and a gift
Hmm.
it is when your character pushes you aside and says, "Get out of my way. This is
Hmm.
who I am, and write me like this." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, okay." And I'm sure that's happened to you as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So,
Yeah.
did you have to do a lot of research? Are you doing a lot of research?
I have done I don't get into it in great depth because it's not adult. It's still
Uh-huh.
young adult. So I get into it from just the very slight layer of the issue. I don't go into any great detail or great depth about
Uh-huh.
it. I just put it out there and I show his struggle and how he's working on it, but I don't get too deep into it. Okay, that's me.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, because I don't want it to overshadow the story. The story's not about his issues and challenges with mental illness. He's
Uh-huh.
not the main character. He's a side character. So I don't
Okay.
want his problems to overtake everything, but I
Yep.
want to make it known to the reader that this is a real person. He's got
Hmm.
problems and he's sharing it with other people, his friends, and this is how it's being handled. So I think it might open up a conversation among young people, perhaps.
Hmm.
So, yeah, thank you
Okay.
for asking that.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
a great
Great.
question. So, well, I tell
Oh,
you what, if we have nothing else for now, I just really
okay.
enjoyed visiting with you, Karen. You're just an amazing person, an amazing
Oh,
writer.
thank
And I'm
you. This was fun. We should do it again.
Yes, well, let's do that. We'll have a part two. Have a great
Thanks.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye. This has been Right About Everything, where we've had honest conversations about courage, creativity, and the craft behind the pages. Whether you're an aspiring writer or a professional author, it's your time to write. So go ahead, write about everything.